I would actually probably, really depending on your skill, this could be edited a lot. I'm going to stick with this for now. We're going to actually go back and add a few hands next, though. Let's see. So, button. That's going to be a decent range. So, now, let's talk about the hands you're going to either add or get rid of depending on table conditions. So, let's say your opponents are... let's think. Let's say short stacks. If you've got short stacks behind you that are going to be pushing a lot, hands that you're going to want to take away, I'll actually give some credit. I started reading a book, a 2+2 post by Ryan Fees, I believe is his full name, Fees on 2+2, and he discussed, I'd actually posted that I was going to do a hand range thing, and I had read parts of his book, and he had done some hand range analysis, so that kind of pushed me in the right direction. And he actually discussed short stacks, and I think that was actually a very good part of his book, discussing how to adapt with short stacks left behind you, because I don't think people do it very well. So I guess I can give a shout out to him for discussing this, and I thought it was a good part of his book that maybe not a lot of players actually think of when they're playing. So if you're going to have a few short stacks behind you, you've got to think, what are short stacks trying to do? One, they're probably shoving pre a lot. And two, they're probably going broke with like any pair on the flop. So you're actually going to change your range to something that actually gets rid of these small pairs, and you're going to more look to play like top pair type things. This is actually probably a decent under the gun range if you're going to have a lot of short stacks behind you. I don't know why you're playing at a table with a ton of short stacks. It's probably not plus EV, but regardless, this is what you're going to do. This is going to give you more, if your opponent shoves, you can call because you've got, good equity against, their shoving range. You're going to have good enough equity to call with, like, almost all of these hands. Maybe you drop out a few of these hands, like a 9-10 to Queen Jack suited. But the rest of these hands are actually probably calling because you're flipping or have, 30 to 50% equity. So it's going to be a decent call, being that you've already put in money. It's also going to allow you, if they do call, something like a King Jack suited is going to allow you to play fit or fold on the flop, where if you flop a pair, it's probably good and you can get it in. So that's going to how we adapt our under the gun range to short stacks. Again, I don't recommend playing with short stacks, but it's something to consider if you've got like a bunch of short stacks at your table, and maybe like an absolutely ridiculous fish that's like shoving every hand or something, for some reason you decide that. So let's now talk about our under the gun +1 range. Actually, this isn't going to change very much. If there's a bunch of short stacks, it's actually probably going to stay about the same. We could probably add that. And like Ace-9 off can be added. These would be the next two hands I would consider probably adding. I would actually think I might actually rather a King-10 suited than Queen-10 suited with short stacks love to act after me, but we'll go ahead and just add them both. So if your opponents are short stacked after you, this is going to be a good consideration. Now with the cutoff, this is where it gets really awkward, because if you got short sets left stacked after you, they're going to be in their blinds, and it's going to matter if they're very shove happy in their blinds or not. So this is actually going to get kind of difficult to do for this. Again, you'd probably drop I'd probably still raise most pairs. I would probably actually add. I'd be more willing to drop these types of hands. More willing to add like a King-9 off, like a King-9 suited. Honestly, your cutoff and your button range isn't going to change too much. Like, you're still going to want to raise a relatively high range. Again, though, if say you've got a few short stacks in your blinds that are just shoving a ton, maybe you want to do something like drop these hands and add these types of hands. Again, it depends on their shoving range. You actually might want to add aces and drop, the low suited connectors, maybe something like that, I would be much more willing to play aces against them. If they're shoving a lot of hands. Now, if you see them shoving almost any ace, I know we've all seen those short stacks that shove a lot of aces, you're actually going to want to... Actually, you would probably still keep these. Another interesting concept is when you have an ace in your hand, you have a blocker for them having an ace. So, this is actually going to apply to a very wide range of things. But, if you've got an ace-deuce off, it's going to steal it more often than, something like a deuce-5 off, because your opponent's just going to have an ace less amount of the time to shove. So I'd actually still be willing to raise with these, and then I'd probably call with, like, ace-8 and better if they shoved. So that's kind of an interesting way to change up that range for under the gun. Let me get this going real quick. So, another interesting concept with that aces that I was just talking about is, say you are, I guess I don't actually have to open this, say you're going to be one that is 4-bet bluffing a lot, or 5-betting bluffing. 5-bet bluffing, something that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to, for one, probably, for 4-betting, you're going to be polarizing your range. So let's talk about like 5-betting all in. Instead of adding something like king queens, and even like an ace, maybe like an ace jack suited, but instead of adding stuff like king queens or like